As discussed in an earlier video, we can change the color of an object through the Modify tab. This is not a material. A material is created in the Material Editor. Press M to open the Material Editor. There are two flavors of Material Editor in 3ds Max, the Slate Material Editor and the Compact Material Editor. They both do the same thing, just slightly differently. We will be using the Slate Material Editor. A material determines many aspects of the model. For instance, what color is the object? This is called the diffuse. How does light bounce off the object? This is called the specularity. Is it smooth or is it rough? This and much more are determined by the materials applied to the object. The Slate Material Editor is divided into three columns. The Material Map Browser on the left. Depending on what rendering engine is being used, some materials or maps may not always be available. The view or work area in the center where the material will be constructed using an input-output node system. To the right is the navigator, an overview of the work area. Below that, the material parameter editor where the parameters of the active material can be edited. Across the top are drop-down menus and an icon toolbar. Hover over the tool to see its name. In the Material Browser, expand Materials, Standard, and drag a standard material into the work area. Double-click the material header to make it the active material. Its properties are now shown in the Material Parameter Editor. These parameters will change depending on what is selected in the work area. At the top is a text box for naming the material. It's important to name your materials logically. Below that, in the Shader Basic Parameters rollout, there are a number of shaders available in Max. A shader controls how light interacts with the material. Use the search feature to learn more about the shaders included in Max. Next to that are four tick boxes that modify how the material will render. By default, Max only applies the material to one side of the polygons that make up the surface of the object. With the teapot, this causes issues with being able to see through the teapot and with shadows. By ticking the two-sided option, the material will be applied to both sides of the polygon, solving the problem. Below are the parameters for the default blend shader. Clicking the color swatch next to the diffuse sets the base color of the object. We will learn how to apply images to the diffuse in future videos. The diffuse and ambient are locked together. The specularity is the highlight from the light source. Specular level and glossiness control how intense the highlight is. As a rule, harder objects have a higher specular and glossiness. Opacity controls the transparency of the material. We will look at this when we texture the door. The material is represented in the work area with inputs down the left and an output node on the right. One way to apply a material is to drag from the output on the right to the object in the 3D viewport. I will now create textures for the walls, floor, and my name. The door is a special case. Click the door to select it, then click the pink light bulb under the timeline to isolate it. It is made up of different parts, the door frame, the different panels on the door, etc. These different parts need different textures. To accomplish this, Max has assigned the faces or polygons a number called a Polygon Material ID and provides a material called a Multi-Sub-Object Material that accesses those material IDs. This material has inputs assigned different numbers that accept standard and other materials. There are 5 material IDs for the doors and windows. 5 standard materials, each plugged into the multi-sub-object material, then applied to the door. We will explore texturing much more in future videos. For now, practice the basics and build a solid foundation.